Long before he wore a crown, David was a simple shepherd boy. He lived in the hills of Bethlehem, the youngest son of Jesse, from the tribe of Judah. His days were quiet, filled with sheep and stones, wind and psalms, but inside this young boy burned a fierce and faithful heart. David was small compared to his older brothers. While they fought in King Saul's army, David stayed behind, tending sheep, playing his harp, and singing songs to the Lord. His hands were calloused not from a sword, but from the sling and the staff. One morning, David guided his flock through a narrow valley. Suddenly, a lion sprang out of the brush, its growl echoing through the hills. The sheep scattered in panic. David did not run. He reached into his pouch, pulled out a smooth stone, and placed it in his sling. With calm precision, he swung the sling and released the stone. The lion fell. When a bear came days later, the result was the same. David wasn't just a boy, he was brave, but his strength came from his trust in God. "The Lord is my shepherd," he would sing. "I shall not want." As he watched the stars at night, his heart drew closer to the Almighty. He saw God in the whispering trees, in the roar of thunder, and in the quiet bleating of sheep. It was during one of those still nights that David was called away from the fields. A visitor had come to Jesse's house, an old prophet named Samuel. God had rejected Saul as king. He had sent Samuel to anoint a new one. Jesse brought out his sons, one by one. They were tall, strong, and proud, but the Lord whispered to Samuel, "Do not look at their appearance or their height. I have rejected them, for I see not as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Finally, David was called in from the fields, dusty, young, unlikely. But when Samuel saw him, the Lord said, "This is the one." Samuel took oil and anointed David in front of his family. The Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him from that day forward. But nothing changed immediately. David went back to the fields. The harp returned to his hands, the sheep to his feet. But the oil had changed something deep inside. The boy who killed lions was now called to face giants. While David cared for the sheep, the kingdom of Israel trembled under fear. Across the valley of Elah, the Philistines had set up camp, challenging Saul's army to battle. But this was no ordinary war. Every morning and every evening, a towering figure stepped forward from the Philistine ranks. Goliath, more giant than man, stood over 9 feet tall. He wore bronze armor, heavier than a grown man. A helmet gleamed on his head, a javelin was strapped on his back, and a massive spear rested in his hand like a tree trunk. His voice thundered across the valley, "Send out a man to fight me. If he kills me, we will become your servants. But if I kill him, you will serve us." For 40 days no one answered. Even King Saul, once mighty in battle, stayed silent. His men trembled, hearts grew weak. Faith seemed distant. Back in Bethlehem, Jesse called David, "Take this bread and cheese to your brothers on the battlefield. See how they're doing, and bring me news." David set out early, leaving the sheep in care of a servant. As he approached the battlefield, he heard the same shout echo across the valley, "Send me a man to fight." David saw the fear in the soldiers' faces. He watched his brothers shrink back. But something in David's heart stirred, righteous anger, mixed with bold faith. "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine," he asked, "that he should defy the armies of the living God?" His brothers mocked him, "You're just a boy, go home to your sheep." But David would not be silenced. Word reached Saul, the boy who questioned the fear. Saul summoned David. When David entered the tent, Saul was surprised. He saw a youth, not a warrior. "You are not able to fight this giant," Saul said. David stood tall. "When I was shepherding, I killed lions and bears. The Lord who delivered me then will deliver me now." Reluctantly, Saul agreed. He placed his own armor on David, heavy bronze, royal garments. David could hardly move. He shook his head and removed them. "I cannot wear these. I have not tested them." Instead, David picked up his staff, his sling, and 5 smooth stones from a nearby brook. Then he stepped onto the battlefield. Across the valley, Goliath laughed. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" David did not flinch. "You come with sword and spear, but I come in the name of the Lord of hosts. This day he will deliver you into my hand." The armies held their breath. David ran forward. He placed a stone in his sling, spun it with speed and precision, and released. The stone flew like lightning and struck Goliath on the forehead. The giant stopped, then he fell, face first. Silence fell over the valley. David ran to Goliath's body, drew the giant's sword, and cut off his head. The Philistines fled. Israel shouted with joy and chased them down. From that day on, David was no longer just a shepherd. He was a warrior, a symbol of courage, a young man who changed the fate of a nation because of his faith in God. After David's victory over Goliath, the people of Israel erupted in celebration. Songs rang through the streets. Saul has slain his thousands, they sang, but David his tens of thousands. But not everyone rejoiced. King Saul watched with dark eyes. Jealousy crept into his heart like a shadow. Though David had saved Israel, Saul feared him. The boy's name was on every tongue. His bravery, his faith, his victory, it stirred a loyalty among the people that Saul could not command. Still, Saul kept David near. He made him commander over soldiers, and David won victory after victory. He behaved wisely. He served Saul loyally. And yet Saul's heart grew darker. One evening, as David played his harp for Saul, a music that once calmed the king's troubled spirit, Saul grabbed a spear and hurled it at him. David dodged just in time. From that moment, David knew the king's heart had turned. He fled the palace. He left behind the songs, the cheers, the safety. With nothing but his faith and a few loyal men, David became a fugitive. He wandered the hills of Judah. He hid in caves, slept in the wilderness, and evaded Saul's soldiers. At times he cried out in fear. At other times, he sang psalms of trust. He had the chance to kill Saul twice. Once while Saul slept in a cave. Again when Saul entered David's camp at night. But David refused. "I will not touch the Lord's anointed," he said. Instead, he showed Saul mercy. Each time, Saul wept and repented. Each time, his heart turned again toward rage. David lived this way for years, on the run, yet never defeated. His heart remained faithful. His spirit never stopped singing. Then came the final battle. The Philistines rose against Israel once more. Saul and his sons went to war. On Mount Gilboa, the king fell. Wounded and surrounded, Saul took his own sword and fell on it. His sons, including Jonathan, David's closest friend, were killed beside him. News reached David in the wilderness. He tore his clothes, he wept, he fasted. Though Saul had chased him, hated him, tried to kill him, David mourned deeply. "The beauty of Israel is slain on your high places," he cried. "How the mighty have fallen." And then the people called for David. With Saul gone, there was no king. The elders of Judah came to David in Hebron and said, "Be our king." And so the shepherd boy from Bethlehem, the giant slayer, the fugitive in the caves, was crowned king of Judah. Years later, all Israel united under him. David, son of Jesse, anointed by God, became the king of all Israel. He led with strength, he ruled with justice, and through every victory and failure, he remained a man after God's own heart. The boy with a sling had become the warrior king, and Israel would never be the same.